Welcome back, this is Imi, I'm Fletcher, and this is Film Feels. Today is the next installment in the 4K Ultra HD Infinity Saga review. This film was directed by Kenneth Branagh, written by Ashley Miller, Don Payne and Zach Stentz. This is starring Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Hopkins, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleson, Stellan Skargard, Kat Dennings, Idris Elba and Clark Gregg. So I'll give you a quick synopsis, considering I didn't do one for the last movie, which I went to, but we know what that was. Anyway, Thor, a mighty Asgardian warrior who was to become king, is cast into exile after threatening acts of war. After losing his powers, he learns to live with humans in Midgard, only to find his brother Loki has been plotting against him. Interesting to note, the writers for the screenplay here wrote X-Men First Class, which is one of the more respected in the Foxverse X-Men franchise. Don Payne is also credited for Thor and Thor the Dark World and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. And I feel like there's a link of mediocrity there. I stress again, given the film's industry's complicated moving parts, it is pretty difficult to pin the failure of a film to any one party. But writing is a huge component and it can make or break any story or even franchise, so I don't really want to say it's entirely his fault, but it's hard to say. Who knows whether or not how many people got involved in that, how many people were meddling within that. Kenneth Branagh as the director, he hasn't got the most illustrious directorial career, but there is a lot of love that has gone into this film. I've watched a lot of the behind the scenes and how he worked, and you can see that he really understands the subject matter and he really wanted to be faithful to the original comics. Perhaps maybe too much in retrospect. Still, I don't hate this movie at all. I do quite enjoy it. It is certainly not the worst in the Infinity Saga, but it's definitely not even close to top tier. So this whole review, spoiler filled, so because I want to just quickly get through the review and be able to talk about things that I liked about the movie and I don't like, and that's, spoiler worthy all the way. So spoilers ahead, you've been warned. This is a strange one in the Infinity Saga because it's not a volume I tend to frequent, but I do find myself rewatching particular monologues just because they're so good. They're so good. Hopkins, Hiddleson, and even Hemsworth all bring an intensity to their parts. Hopkins is easily one of the most defining actors of our time. His delivery and gravitas he brings to the realm of Odin is immaculate. Even when he looks like he's over-encumbered by an extravagant costume design, he still nails his lines and he nails the scene to the wall. This is a huge part of what I enjoy about this first Thor film. Some of his performance in the first season of Westworld are my favourite as well. If you haven't seen that show, that first season is unbelievably good. His role as Robert Ford is just harrowing and a kind of strange, complex version of maybe Hannibal Lecter. He has that calm, calculative look and aura about him. It's very interesting. Hiddleson as well as Loki, his first appearance as Loki. Probably Loki has one of the most satisfying arcs throughout the Infinity Saga, along with people like Tony, Cap. I think up there is Loki as well. Loki, he's there all the way to the end. Going back to this original chapter, I used to think that Loki was supposed to be this profoundly sociopathic type of character, like your Joker or just someone who's meant to be devoid of any feeling. But now I see that he's a being who was never really meant to have feelings, like a frost giant from Jotunheim, but being brought up on Asgard with Odin and Frigga, they seem to have imbued him with the ability to feel. And it's not that he is sociopathic, he just doesn't seem to know how to handle them. Throughout the course of the saga, he seems to learn how to let go of his darker emotions that overwhelm him, allowing to accept his father and brother's love for him, but it does take a long time for sure, and a lot of people die in the process. But honestly, look back and look at the conflict in the scene. Look at the delivery that Hiddleson gives.
Is it? Come on, what happened to you on Earth that turned you so soft?
He goes full Hopkins and smashes it. I love Loki as a character. He's complex and deep and interesting, and I am stoked to see his new series coming up. Thor, for the majority of the film, is quite an unlikable character. He's just an unlikable person. Despite being 1,000 years old, he's...
You're a vain, greedy, cruel boy! You're unworthy!
Father.
Hey!
He said it best. Go on. Okay. How am I going to beat that? How would I top that? I wouldn't dare. But Hemsworth embodies these things on the surface level. It's how I suppose a lot of good-looking jock types are perceived, but he turns out to be such a fun, kind, and complex person, both as Thor and himself in real life. I think it's very easy to dismiss people like Hemsworth who, usually get their jobs because of their looks, but over 10 years ago now, as another buff, pretty boy lead, I personally dismissed him. Though he has taken Thor to deep and compelling places and proved to be incredibly hardworking as an actor in all of the films that he's involved in subsequently. That being said, there are a few things that I don't like. That being Thor's bleach blonde eyebrows. It just took me a while to fully understand what I didn't like about Thor's original look. It screams this uncanny valley flaring, and they did a great job of amending it in the later chapters, but it just doesn't look right. I get it, it's comic book accurate, but it just doesn't suit him as a character. Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 are entertaining, but don't really have much complexity to them. Most likely because they have no arc here or in any of the sequels, which is why almost all of them have been unceremoniously killed by Ragnarok. And no one really cared either. I don't remember anyone going, oh no, but Sif though survived, and Sif is coming back in Love and Thunder though, so she lost a lot as a character, so there is hope yet for her to add some more complexity to her character. Also, the human component, basically Kat Dennings and Natalie Portman, is pretty weak, and it's not because of bad acting or anything like that, obviously not, but I get that they're supposed to be this thing that anchors Asgard to Earth and then S.H.I.E.L.D., which then links them to the other movies, but essentially it's just kind of boring. It's just kind of boring to watch. But they are funny at times, but I think a lot of the funniness that comes through it is actually just Hemsworth, perhaps Stellan Skarsgård as well. Though Portman and Dennings are getting a reprisal to change that. Portman, who's coming back as the mighty Thor herself, and she'll be wielding Mjolnir, which I have read the Jane Foster comic run of Thor, and it is badass. I loved it. It's awesome. It's definitely not anything that's pandering at all. It's fun, it's heartwarming, there's intensity to it. Obviously it'll be probably heavily adapted for the films, but I'm still interested to see what happens. Dennings is set to star in the imminent WandaVision that's coming out very soon. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Darcy there, but also Dennings is playing Death in the TV adaptation of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. Holy shit, that sounds interesting. I'm excited to see that. I think it's on hold at the moment, I'm not sure, or maybe I missed it. I would like more focus on the Asgardian culture. They do seem kind of generalized, and they're even visually generalized by their costumes and such. We know so little about them, even now. I do really like Stellan Skarsgård's role and how he knows the stories of Thor and from his culture, and he's also an incredible actor. Also, we get to see Coulson again. I can't help it. I love him. He's like fangirling with Mjolnir, and we get our brief first introduction of Hawkeye. That sequence of Thor fighting his way through S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to get to Mjolnir was pretty decent, but the acting that follows actually I found was even more impactful. That him being unable to actually lift Mjolnir after everything he did. Some of the VFX shots are actually quite dated. namely the close-ups of Thor getting his powers back with that strange overexposure because of the lightning hitting behind him. And that being said, there are these full and rich environments of Asgard, Jotunheim, seeing the Rainbow Road. Look at that. Stuff of legends. Oh no. Oh, the horror. The horror! More to this point, is this 4K worthy? Is Thor 2010 worthy to wield the power of 4K? This was such a leap from the other films before it. There are far more large environmental VFX shots and detailing new worlds, unseen worlds. Jotunheim deserves a revisit, I think. The ice effects look so crisp in 4K, and they have this really smooth, quick animation. It's so dark and foreboding, but I guess we get to see Muspelheim in Thor Ragnarok, which was brief but also badass. Whether it's the grandeur of Asgard, the colossi of Jotunheim, the marvel of space, and the brutality of the destroyer armor, there are definitely many highlights within this film that shine in 4K. Some stunning sights, and a shame that the story itself is kind of mediocre, especially in light of where the saga actually goes cosmically. But I would say it's great to watch in 4K. It definitely has some beautiful moments, for sure. Also, something that I found really interesting, the town in New Mexico where Thor lands after being cast out. That set, 3 years prior, that they used for films like 3:10 to Yuma, and they completely rebuilt it so that it would be this quaint little town. And then they blew it up. And for all the things that the film is, I mean, that's pretty cool. It looks amazing. It did look strange when I watched the movie. I was like, this town is awfully tiny. It's strangely tiny. But it's pretty amazing what they did. And it looks wild. And it's a cool little bit of heritage there for what kind of set that it is. So I don't know if you've seen 3:10 to Yuma, but I need to see it because I've only heard great things about it. I also remember watching the behind the scenes and seeing young Feige. Feige. I used to think his name was Phage, you know, like beige. My bad. But still, that man he's such an inspiration in how he has made, a lot of us would agree, is a childhood dream into a reality, whilst navigating the corporate creative sphere so deftly. I have the utmost respect for Kevin Feige and what he's done. I would love to interview that man. It'd be fantastic. Next week on Emu Reviews, though, I will be reviewing Captain America: The First Avenger. I don't mind this film, but I remember it dragging a bit. It will be interesting to see how it makes me feel this time. I don't really have massively fond memories of most the films in the first phase, but on revisiting, I think the way that the characters have developed enriched the way that I view them in the past because of how they develop and grow. Anyway, I've been Fletcher at Emu Reviews. Thanks for the likes, love to the subs, and I'll see you guys next time. Much love, film friends.